Hi, I'm Dave Wolak, Bass Elite Series Pro from Wake Forest, North Carolina. You know, I started fishing competitively when I was about 15 years old. I really started just it was one of those things where I fished my whole life and fished for other species of fish and got into bass tournaments because the local lake had a couple bass tournaments and I enjoyed fishing out there. And it was, you know, I was always an athlete, so I played a lot of sports and was really competitive. And once I fished my first bass tournament, I realized there was kind of something different about it. I guess it was because people of all ages could fish, and you know, it's a very long game. I mean, you're out there 8 hours, sometimes 10 hours, and there's a lot going into it, and there's so many different variables. And it was that challenge that really attracted me to it. And once I fished my first tournament, I was hooked. One of the things I look for in a reel is different innovations in function. And this Pinnacle Vision Slyder reel has a roller on here that could allow me to really slow down a bait. And you know, right now I'm in cold weather, it's the winter time, and I know the fish are extremely slow and I got to slow down in order to get bit. So right in front of me, for instance, I have a rock that I'm trying to fish extremely slow, and I could just kind of thumb that roller, that slider, and just barely crawl that bait. And that difference in function allows me to have the ability to catch a couple more fish throughout the course of the year, and that's important to me because I could use this reel in different various functions, and it's a 7.1 ratio reel, but I know if I was turning the handle, I'd be fishing it a little bit too aggressively. So that ability to just barely slow down and crawl that bait over the rocks gives me a couple extra fish throughout the course of the year. You know, another function of this Pinnacle Vision Slyder that I use all the time is if I'm in an area like, say, against these toolies where I'm pitching and flipping in a repetitive motion all day long, I could pitch it in there, engage that reel, and sort of just thumb my slack down. And that gives me the ability to keep in constant contact with that bait, and throughout the course of the day, that constant contact, if a fish bites it, I'm going to have less slack and a better ability to have a better hook set on that fish, and usually that's more fish to the boat. You know, it's winter time and it's extremely cold out, but everybody thinks the fish go really deep, but you can't be afraid to fish too shallow when it's in the winter, especially if you have rocks. Now, I'm swimming a jig right now and I'm right up against the riprap, and the reason I'm doing this is because a lot of times these fish will get right up against those rocks, especially if you have a warming trend or you have an afternoon situation where it gets a little bit warmer in the afternoon. Those fish will get right up in tight, sometimes 0 to 6 inches of water, and it's important to get your boat parallel right to the rocks and swim that jig right in that strike zone the whole entire time. And many times I'll actually see the wake from the fish actually coming from 2 inches of water. That's how shallow they are, even in the winter time. And the reason they're there is because these rocks magnify the heat, and sometimes you have, like, say, a 1 or 2 degree temperature difference, and a fish could feel that. And even that 1 or 2 degrees is a big difference, and especially in the winter.